Welcome back to the double leg. I am one half of the show, Hey Jive Picks. Joining me in the parlay, we got some UFC Vegas 68 to recap. It was a disappointing night in some fashion, but either way, if you tailed on the double leg premium, you would be up money, and that is all that matters at the end of the day. So we can go over the bets, we can go over all the fights and get our take on it. I'll try to keep it under like 30, 40 minutes, but some good fights, some actionable fights, but obviously when you got money on the line and your fighter's not coming through or your fighter's getting mauled on the ground like a lot of our fighters were, it's a little frustrating. But either way, a lot of action, and we got four title winners for the road to the UFC, and not looking good for Derrick Lewis at the moment. But how'd it go for you? How did you like the card? And what are your thoughts?
So, like the early prelims on to the road to the UFC, I mean, those dudes looked really good, and a lot of action in the fight. Especially the road to the UFC guys. You could tell they wanted to go out there and finish each other, and we got a lot of that. Taira looked super good. Landed that submission prop. I wish I would have taken him in the first round, but I was a little nervous. Sometimes he gets those submissions later in the fight, but. Yeong Lee, questionable call there. We were on the right side of that one. Hit a few parlays, but man, after the road to the UFC, it just really went downhill and almost like a roller coaster for me.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we had the banger of the weekend. Mandy Bowman and Ji-Young Kim get canceled. That was disappointing. Everyone wanted to see that one, especially me with my split decision on Mandy Bowman. I was really wanting that one to hit, but didn't get to see it play out. It is what it is. But
that's going to be, I don't know how many cancellations for Kim now. I mean, a ton.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I didn't even put that together, but she had a ton. And, geez, not looking good for her. Unfortunate. It's always unfortunate when someone pulls out, and you put so much into a camp and everything. And then your opponent pulls out and there's really nothing you can do, especially fight day or even if they miss weight. That's tough. If you're new here, please leave a like, subscription, and a comment down below. This is the double leg, the apex for everything you need to know in the UFC. And if you look on our channel, you'll see that we posted the exclusive show for our premium members. That gets sent out to the premium members. Usually record it like Friday night once everything's finalized. That gets sent out to them in a private video, and then it gets put up live after the fights for everyone to view to see what our plays were. That is $19.99 to get in that double leg premium. That is an insane value. I know we put a ton of work into giving everything in that premium for you guys. Everything you need to know about the card is all there for less than $1 a day. So,
and as we get bigger too, I mean, we're gonna keep adding stuff, try to bring as much value as possible. So, just want to make it a big community where any UFC bettor wants to come be a part of our group. Bounce ideas off each other, just make it a huge, valuable group so everybody can try to make money every Saturday. Because as you see last night, dude, it's not always easy to make big money in the UFC when you're betting on it. I mean, you can be up 5 units at one point, and the next thing you know, you turn around and you're down a half unit, down 2 units. So, yeah, the bigger the community, the more resources we'll be able to bring in and, help grow this thing and make it a super valuable community.
Yep, we always offer the option, just $9.99 if you just want the bets for the card that weekend. But obviously, you're going to get a little bit better value doing the premium, and you're going to get a more sustained level of information as far as if you get one bad week where it's not profitable, you get more weeks within the month that you can get your money back if one of them is not profitable. So, that is it for that. But we'll get right into the card for UFC Vegas, starting with the main event. The only play I had on this one was Derrick Lewis on the money line, basically, and he didn't even get to throw a punch. So that was it was just a very small play, quarter of a unit, lost it. I was up money at that point. It was gonna just make the night better for me. I didn't necessarily believe too much in Spivac as far as like if he could take a shot. But obviously, if he doesn't have to take a shot, then he's going to be fine. And mauled Derrick Lewis, and he looked pretty good. So Yeah, good win for Spivac. I didn't lose too much on that one, and I wasn't feeling too down about it because I was up on the night. So, what did you have on that one?
So I was pretty confident in Spivac, but I didn't want to lay. I didn't want to take him at over minus 200, minus 250 because of the power in the fight on Derrick Lewis's side. And so I took him by knockout for a bigger amount of money. And then I sprinkled a little bit on Derrick Lewis by knockout just to, kind of a safety net thing to where I'm not going to end the night losing money. No matter what, I'm going to make, a couple, 0.25 units or whatever it would be. But he ended up getting a sub, which was impressive, but I honestly didn't see him submitting Derrick Lewis when I was watching the film back. I know he's got, the submission capabilities, but what is the only guy to submit Derrick Lewis, like Daniel Cormier or something?
Yep.
And so I figured Lewis would be too strong to, get in bad positions or he'd be able to fend off the sub. And I thought Sergey Spivac was going to get the TKO, but it looked like he was going to for a minute, but man, dude, heartbreaker there. That put me in the red on the night, just down just over a unit. So it's nothing, it's really no sweat off the back. But yeah, I wanted that one so bad just to be in the green for, a few weeks in a row now.
Yeah, that's a tough beat because Spivac by sub, I think, was like over plus 300 at least.
Yeah.
For the fact that Lewis hadn't been subbed very often in his career.
Right.
And it looked like, I guess it was fake news that Derrick Lewis was skinny now. I mean, he thought maybe him being skinnier would be easier to knock him out.
Yeah.
But, on the ground, he'd be a little bit faster, able to get out of the submissions.
Right.
But no, he was still every bit of 265. So
he's a big boy in there. Bigger than, you look at those pictures of when he was skinny, dude, that's from COVID. That's all the COVID weight he lost. There's no way, or that's like, 4 or 5 months ago, because last night he was a big boy in there.
Yeah, no, he was big. He pulled out because of like some health issues. So maybe he lost some weight over that or whatever.
Yeah, he said he ended up getting COVID, and he said that's, he was throwing up, the whole 9 yards, and that's he said he lost a bunch of weight. So I'm guessing he took those pictures right after. It was like, finally got a 6-pack for a week, and then he put all that weight back on. I was honestly shocked when he weighed in. They said 265.
Yeah. I mean, he's weighed in heavier than Spivac, so he's packing it on. Jung, Devin Clark. This one was so disappointing, but I didn't have too much invested into it. For the fact that I did think Devin Clark could push it to the fight of clinch control in wrestling, and never allow Jung to get those heads or get those hands moving and landing on Devin Clark. So I didn't get too invested. I just had him in a parlay, which was already caked at that point. So I literally had nothing in the stake at this point, no stake in the fight at this point. So it was still frustrating to watch because it was like, dude, this is not looking good for you. Disappointing for you too as well, which is good.
Dude, just super disappointed in the performance altogether. He honestly, the fight IQ was not there. And up until the Jacoby fight, I thought Jung, had a chance to be, a pretty decent fighter in the UFC. Good striking most of the time. He's big for the division. If you looked at him in there, just his frame, his length, and his size, he was a lot bigger than Devin Clark. And I thought that was going to give Devin Clark a lot of problems because Jung had, nearly, 88% takedown defense. So I figured he would just be able to, stuff the takedown, separate, and then handle him on the feet. He got into clinch situations, missed on some elbows, landed a couple. But, dude, the volume and the output was not there at all. Hats off to Devin Clark, man. I wish I would have hammered him as an underdog now and not put Jung in a parlay. A real, limited parlay. It was a 2-leg for like a half a unit maybe, so it wasn't, anything crazy, but he lost. I had him by KO too at the prop because I figured, like I said, thought he'd be a lot better on the feet. Ended up shit in the bed. Did not look good. Super disappointing too going into the main event after, I'm kind of teetering on the edge of being up or down on the night. I wanted to get those last two so bad, and whatever. We move on. It's just part of the game, I guess.
Yep. You never know what you're going to get on any given night, especially in the Apex. A smaller cage, too, would seem to favor Devin Clark.
Right.
In his clinch and his wrestling.
And I do want to say one thing. When I looked at the money splits, all of the money was on Jung. Most of the money was on him, and I ignored it because I figured most people betting on this fight, if they're degenerates, are just throwing money on whoever the favorite is because they don't know a lot of these names. They want something to bet on. I didn't think that, early in the week, a lot of people, would be betting on Jung because they knew a lot about him. So I kind of ignored that this week, and it bit me in the ass because, dude, there's a lot of fighters on the card last night who 85, 90% of the money was on, and the opposite guy ended up winning, and Vegas ended up winning big. So,
yeah,
I should have trusted my gut a little bit more, but, it's just part of it. Learn, go on to the next week, and but yeah, super disappointing.
Well, the next fight was a cash for you, Tybura and Ivanov.
Not an easy cash.
Yeah, it was a greasy one. It was a greasy one, and I had Ivanov by decision. And after those first 2 rounds, I was like, "This is looking pretty good for me. If Ivanov can continue this, maybe get a decision win, then he gets taken down in the first 30 seconds, 1 minute of the third round, controlled for the rest of the fight, which was okay for me because I had Tybura under 1.5 takedowns to cash the prize picks play to get 2 units back. So I was happy that at least one of my bets in that fight hit, and it was the bigger one. So I was okay with it. Even though by decision loses though for 1/4 of a unit, and I wasn't too upset about it. But your play hit, Tybura money line, right?
Yeah, and I threw a 1.5 units on it, and I was really confident just because of how he looked against Romanov. He's like the type of guy that it takes a whole lot to put him out. I didn't think Blagoy at this stage had a ton that was going to, affect Tybura. Plus, Tybura was a lot bigger in there, you could tell. But Blagoy was fast for a heavyweight, man. He looked pretty good at times. Tybura, I was expecting him to get takedowns right from the get-go, and he didn't. Waited until the third round, ended up paying off. But, dude, how did that Marcin Tybura beat Alexander Romanov last fight? That's crazy. He just didn't. Neither guy looked real great, but that one going to the decision was probably the lock of the card. Should have known that, but I didn't take it. We knew that was going to the decision. Those guys just kind of pitter-pattered, and that last round was just a takedown and ground control. So, I needed that one last night. It cashed 1.5 units. I was happy to get that one.
Blagoy got cracked a couple times, but you
can't
crack that chin fully, man. You can hit it, but it ain't gonna shatter.
Dude's been stabbed in the chest. He's not gonna go out from a punch.
It's so funny to watch him, man. Like, he's like 5'11".
Yeah.
You would never think that he's a UFC fighter if you just saw him in a bar or something. Be like, okay, that's just a regular dude. But no, he's that guy. And I think that's the reason why a lot of people were on Tybura. It's like, you look at Ivanov and you're like, there's no way this guy's should ever compete with Tybura. But he competes, and that's what it's like 6th or 7th fight in a row to go to decision for Ivanov. That's wild for a heavyweight. Duho Choi, Kyle Nelson. Disappointing ending for Duho Choi. Controversial as well. This one's. What are your thoughts on the taking the point away?
So watching the replay, it didn't seem like it was egregious. It didn't seem like he purposefully hit his head against him, trying to knock him out with a headbutt or anything. I think he was trying to get his arms free, and he thought he had one, and he tried to go down with an elbow, and his arm was still locked up, and his head went instead of his arm, and he got the headbutt. But he hadn't done it earlier in the fight. We hadn't seen anything dirty earlier in the fight, so I think a strict warning there would have been fine. You take a point there in a tight fight like that. You basically all but ruined Duho Choi's chance of even winning, or, of course, he could have got the knockout or submission. But, that late in the fight, in a close fight, just give him the warning, let him keep going on. Because, he had good position there, too. He was on top, and then you take a point, kind of, avoids out that round. So I don't think they should have taken a point. I don't think it was bad enough. If he would have gotten a bad cut from it, I could see you standing up and taking a point. If it did any kind of visible damage like that, I could see you, be like, okay, this is going to affect the fight going forward. We got to do something. But it didn't look that bad to me at all.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. It's really tough because
it's touchy. It is.
It's super tough. Was it intentional? No, obviously not. It didn't look intentional at all. But at the same time, it's like, even if let's say you poke a guy in the eye and then he can't really see out of his eye for like a round, and it's not intentional, like it still impairs him in some fashion. And now we kind of go into the route of like, if it's visible damage, then you should take a point. Well, maybe it's not like visible, but it's still damaging, so you take a point that way. Unbiased, I would probably say it's so tough because I would lean to take the point away because it's probably, I don't know, maybe a warning first, and then at least take the point away second. But sometimes it's so impairing that it's like you have to take a point on the first time. I don't think that was the case in that time. I don't think that was enough to take a point on the first encounter of taking a point. But yeah, that was just kind of fucked up, man. He hasn't won a fight in like 6 years. Now it's probably gonna be like 7 years. So yeah, disappointing there. The under 2.5 rounds didn't hit.
Man,
I had that in a parlay. It was caked already from the Yeong Lee fight, but it was wild that it went all 3 rounds. But
I thought that was one of the better plays on my card. Honestly, I really did. You look at the significant strikes landed per minute on both sides. I think Doo-Ho Choi was over 6, Kyle Nelson over 5, and the volume just wasn't there the whole fight. I mean, Doo-Ho Choi, obviously he's had some time off, and it kind of showed a little bit. He looked a little tired later in the fight, which I thought, okay, maybe we get a finish on the side of Kyle Nelson here. But, nothing real significant happened in the fight. I think Kyle Nelson got a knockdown maybe earlier on in the fight, landed some good shots, but man, I thought under 2.5, I thought it was a lock. Choi just didn't look the same to me.
Yeah, he
didn't take many chances.
It was a lot of Kyle Nelson like controlling on the cage and just kind of going for
grinding it out.
Just kind of grinding it out. And Doo-Ho Choi was like just trying to get him off of him the entire fight, and then would go for his own offensive grappling. So maybe just a different type of fight for him that kind of gassed him out. But I had a 4-leg parlay on No House Advantage for 11x, and I had all the unders of the last 4 fights of the significant strikes, and Doo-Ho Choi was like 46.5 significant strikes or something like that. So I took the under, thinking that it would probably get finished early, and he was still under it with like 30 seconds left in the fight. And Kyle Nelson shoots for a double leg, is just standing there holding Doo-Ho Choi's legs. Doo-Ho Choi is just spamming right hooks to the body. Kyle Nelson does nothing. He just stands there and takes him, and it goes over. So I went 3-4 on that parlay. Would have 11x to my money. So that would have been pretty. I would have been really happy about that. That was just a fun play I threw on the Instagram, but not a part of the premium plays I put out. But yeah,
you got to be sitting there thinking, yelling at the TV at that point when you're about to cash it.
Yeah. I'm like,
dude's just not coming. He's not moving at all. He's just holding on for the end of the round.
Yeah, and it just sucks because even if they don't take that point there, then I think he just plays that different, like towards the end of that fight. So that sucks. But Kinoshita, speaking of sucking, Kinoshita and Adam Fugitt, that was a tough to watch. I cashed the under 2.5 rounds, so I was, at least there's some silver lining in that one. Lost Kinoshita by KO for a half unit, and then had Kinoshita a part of the parlay, which caked it at that point. But overall, it just looked like Fugitt was like, there's no way I could lose this fight. Like, they fed me to the wolves against Michael Morales, and I battled to the 3rd round. It wasn't a great performance. And then they're going to feed me to the wolves to another young and up-and-coming fighter. And he's like, all right, fuck these guys. Like, I'm just coming out to kill this dude. And he did. I mean, I thought Kinoshita would have a better ground game But he got like clipped.
Mm-hmm.
That's what messed him up, is he got clipped and then was on the ground, and he was probably all scrambled in the mine, and he's like trying to just survive, and there was just not enough time where he could hold on. And dude, I was kind of surprised he stopped it like that early.
I was too,
It was
honestly.
I wouldn't call it like a bad stoppage, but I didn't think he was doing that much damage where it was like, all right, you need to stop this. So yeah, not a bad stoppage, but a quick one, I would say. Could be biased there, of course, but there was like 30 seconds left or something. I was like, dude, just hold on to the second round and get your mind back and get on the feet to start this one out. But disappointing overall. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, watching Kinoshita on the Dana White's Contender Series, dude, the shot he hit the guy with, his striking in general, he moves super well, striking super slick. And you called it in kind of our pre-bet show last Tuesday, that Adam Fugitt could go in there and just wrestle his ass off, get Kinoshita down. I mean, that's probably going to be his game plan, and that's how he ended up getting it done, getting this thing to the ground. Showed he's obviously a level above Kinoshita when the fight goes there. And yeah, I took Kinoshita by knockout. I think the whole world was on that play. It's another one of those fights, though. If you look at the money splits, most of the money was on Kinoshita, and not a lot on Fugitt or Fugitt. I'm just going to call him Fugitt. So yeah, I don't know. I thought Kinoshita had the striking and the power and the ability that he'd go in there, hit Adam Fugitt one time, and Fugitt wouldn't really know what to do. But that wasn't the case. Those guys, Kinoshita, Jekka, Saragih, a lot of those guys we saw last night have some work to do on their wrestling before they go any further in the UFC or even the regional scene. They're going to run into a monster wrestler, and they're just going to get controlled the whole fight. We saw it time after time. Every single fight, it seemed like there was a guy that was lost on the ground. Yeah,
I mean, this was probably the fourth or fifth fighter that we're gonna cover. Yeah. Or I guess the first one, we're talking about a little bit. Jung somewhat, but Kinoshita, not a good showing on the ground and a loss there. And then our boy in the next fight, Jekka Saragih, got mauled on the ground by Anshul Jubli, lost the money line play for 3/4 of a unit, and Saragih by KO for 1/4 of a unit. So lost a unit on that fight for me. There's just no chance on the ground. On the feet, he looked pretty good, but on the ground, it was like, this is just never gonna happen. And I thought we made it out of there in the first round, be like, okay, we're gonna start on the second round on the feet, we're gonna be better. And then he just throws some wild stuff.
He does
up to the takedown, and it was on the ground. That was it, man. That was it. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I liked Jekka because of the line movement. For one, he was like a plus 120 favorite or underdog at one point, a little bit ago. And then as the fight got closer, it was like even odds. And then when the fight started, he was up to near minus 150. So I liked that a lot. But on the feet, he's powerful. He looks really good. That kick he landed there before he got taken down, dude, would put most people out. Hats off to Jubli for being that tough and that solid all around. But yeah, I took Jekka, and I thought he'd get it done by knockout just because the power. It seems like everybody he touches, it affects. I thought we'd see more of it. But again, on the ground, man, he was just lost. He had no idea what to do, and it was just a matter of time. You could tell right when his back hit the canvas, this thing was going to be over, not in his favor, pretty quick. Ended up happening. I really wanted that one too because I got him at really good odds. And I thought he was going to find the knockout, but lost that one too.
Yeah, I mean, as far as line value, I got it at even money, and then it closed at like minus 150. So we're looking good there. It just didn't play out in our favor. So got to find the silver linings in those. You're finding the right values. It doesn't always cash, though. Just like we've talked about before, good bets lose and bad bets still win. So there's that. Yeong Lee and Jia, the man with the cheetah hair.
Yeah, that was a interesting. Dicey fight, though.
Greasy fight.
I was holding my breath there at that decision.
Yeah, and Jia had the Devin Clark plan going. grab him and hold on to him and just kind of go for that.
Man,
it worked.
It did. And
especially
honestly,
round 1.
Yeah, in round 1, he looked really good. He made me nervous. But if he would have just been more offensive, in the grappling and, just tried to get aggressive and land some shots with elbows, just anything at all, I think he would have won that, 30-27, 29-28 easily. But he just held on half the time. And he just, I don't know. I don't know if he was trying to get aggressive and Yeong Lee was so defensively sound on the ground that he didn't feel comfortable, throwing any shots or going for any submissions or anything like that. But yeah, man, I think he would have cruised to a victory if he would have just given out a little bit more output. And he didn't, though. I don't know. You're seeing that a lot. You're seeing a lot of guys, traditionally you would win the fight because of all the control time and the takedowns. But now you're seeing, if you get a few takedowns and don't land anything significant and the other guy is just, had a few moments in each round, they're starting to give the rounds to the guy who, got taken down but landed a few shots. So when it went to the judges' scorecard, I thought Yi won, but I knew there was a chance it'd be a split decision for Yeong Lee, and I was crossing my fingers, and we ended up getting it. So,
yeah, I mean, Yi had the perfect game plan, to throw him off at least. I mean, Yeong Lee starts off super fast every fight in the first round.
Yeah,
and he just went for the control time in the first round, and it worked out for him. I mean, kind of slow him down and get him off his rhythm. And then as the fight goes on, I think he probably should have opened up a little bit more, but Yeong Lee is a really good athlete. So every time you try to open up on the ground, he's probably going to, try to spring to his feet. So I think he just kind of didn't feel like he could at that point. But how about Yeong Lee, man? Calling out Dan Ige, Ilya Topuria, Max Holloway, and then Volkanovski, I believe it was, after a split decision win on the road to the UFC. So he's really going after it, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, he's not ready for any of those guys whatsoever. Not even close. It takes years to get to that level.
Yeah, I think you could throw him on the Dana White Contender Series and he'd probably have another split decision at this point. So might need to work a little bit more on that before you get those fights. But one guy that looks like he could be a real problem in the bantamweight division, Rinya Nakamura,
speaks English too.
Yeah, no, I was surprised. I was like, all right, this guy's could be a real star from Japan.
That's a feather in his cap because that will take him far in the UFC. There's, if you can speak English and you can get your own country behind you and then also appeal to the American fans, this dude could make some money in the UFC, and he's a savage.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a straight up savage.
He was nuts, and we were talking before. He had no respect for Toshiomi Kazama, and when Kazama was walking out, they were saying that he said if he loses this fight, he's done with MMA. Like, that is never a good thing to hear. Like, if you're like gonna bet on a guy, be like, all right, if he loses, he's done. Like, he's just done. So I mean, he's probably like kind of checked out already. Like,
right. Yep.
Whether that's true or not, if he's going to be done or not, I don't know. But Rinya Nakamura made quick work of him. Somebody clipped him like 2 or 3 times, and that last one put him flat on his back, and that was it. What was it, like 30 seconds, something like that?
Yeah, it was quick.
Yeah, and plays I had on that, under 10 minutes of fight time for the Prize Picks play, that cashed very easily for Nakamura. Nakamura in round 1 or 2 for a unit -115, cashed that very easily. Should have just took him in round 1, but gave him a little bit of a leeway on that one. Nakamura inside the distance parlay with Tetsuro Taira inside the distance, +133 for a half unit. That cashed that one at that point. Did you have anything on Nakamura?
I not officially. Because, like I said, man, he was off FanDuel. He was off all those sites. For whatever reason, they took his line off for a while. Leading up to the fight, I didn't like the -425 on a guy we haven't really seen at this level yet, so I didn't want to touch the money line. I really wanted to see that KO prop. And then right before the fight started, right before, I guess it would have been Young Sung Park's fight started, I took Young Sung Park by submission, which was like +490, surprisingly. And then I saw Rinya Nakamura was back on, and I took him by KO at 105 in a parlay, and that ended up hitting. So that was a good one. But, dude, yeah, I knew that his wrestling was super dominant, but he seems like a guy that doesn't want to wrestle. He wants to stand there and bang. You could kind of see that in his past fights. Like, the wrestling's there if he needs it. He can kind of lean on it as a crutch. But the dude can strike. And I thought, usually I won't take a guy by knockout if it's right at even money. I just don't see there's a ton of value for a prop there. But for him, I was like, if I can get him at any kind of plus money for a KO, I'm going to jump on it in a little parlay. Ended up paying off. That knockout was beautiful. Second shot he landed after the dude was already knocked out. A little unnecessary, but do what you got to do. The dude's a savage. He's going to be a stud in the UFC.
Yeah, and Hyung-Sung Park getting it done in the third round against, what was it, Sunguk Choi?
Yeah.
Korean Zombie's protege. The only play I had on that was Hyung-Sung Park inside the distance at plus 215. For
a little sweat then.
Yeah, it was. I was like, this ain't looking good, but I mean, he pulled it together in round 3 and got it done. Rear naked choke. Really nice, too. Really nice back take and fished around the neck for a while, sunk it in.
Yeah.
Let go, squeezed him out, and cashed a ticket for us and his ticket into the UFC.
The way he switched, back and forth from arm to arm for the choke was impressive, and it was fast, too. I mean, you just knew he had to tap out sometime because every time he'd switch, that arm was right under the chin again, and finally ended up getting it, dude. That dude's submission game, you can just tell. If he can get it to the ground in fights, he's going to be a problem. He's just slick. He's flexible. He's pretty long for that division, and he's quick with everything. His transitions, everything. So he's going to be fun to watch, too, I think.
Yeah, they looked a little bit hesitant in the first round or so.
Yeah.
Kind of get their reads and everything. Jun-Young Park, Dennis Tiululin. This was the shitter to start for us as far as the guys with no ground game. Dennis Tiululin, first of all, comes out looking like he already fought a 5-round fight. Like he's sweating his ass off. Hairs everywhere. He looked like he was dying. He looked like he just went through like a war. It didn't look good. And Jun-Young Park made pretty quick work with him once he got him to the ground, landed some elbows, bloodied him up like pretty bad. And I don't think Dennis Tiululin was ever going to make it out of that. Even if he managed to get to the end of round 1, start of round 2, he'd probably get into the ground pretty quick. And you're getting some of the same stuff. Lots of ground and pound, flips him over, gets the rear naked choke, flattens him out. And a loss for me, half a unit on the money line and quarter of a unit by KO. So not a big loss there, but still frustrating because like on the feet, he looked okay, but just on the ground, he's just, I don't know how he is so bad on the ground. Like
it was awful.
Yeah, it was rough to watch, but
yeah, I had him too. I didn't take him by knockout, actually. I just took the money line. And the reason I did, it's not like I had high confidence that he was going to go out there and, win this fight easily. But for a finisher like he is, I think, most of his wins have come by knockout. Against Jung-Young Park, who doesn't get a ton of, he had that submission in his last fight. He doesn't get a ton of, finishes, though. He's not like a knockout puncher. He doesn't hold a ton of power in his hands. I just wanted to take the finisher at plus money when you could get him at near plus 180. I thought that was good value on a guy like Tiululin, who just knocked out Jamie Pickett, who kind of likes to wrestle a little bit and who just kind of, same striking style as Park. So I thought there was some value on Tiululin for sure. I think a lot of people did. I saw him on a lot of people's cards, and at plus 180, I threw a half unit on him. And, man, once he got mounted, dude, he had no idea how to get Park off or even where to start. He didn't know where to start. I mean, his elbows were on the mat. He was leaving himself open for some nasty elbows by Park that landed. It was just brutal on the ground for Dennis Tiululin.
Yeah, I mean, he was in mount for like a good 2.5 minutes before he got finished.
At some point, just hang on for dear life, man.
Yeah, for real. Just stop bleeding, literally. Yeah. First fight of the night, Tatsuro Taira getting it done. Little scary moment there at the beginning with that guillotine. Aguilar's got a really good guillotine, a bunch of finishes by guillotine. But Tatsuro Taira hangs on and gets a nice submission by arm triangle or triangle choke armbar. So that was impressive, and it looked really good.
Yeah.
And of course, on the mic, he's got to do that like screaming thing at the end. So I was like, is that just going to be his thing where he wins and just screams into the mic? But cash the Taira by sub and the Taira inside the distance. So we're happy about that. You had Taira by sub as well. What'd you think of that one?
Yeah, it was a good way to start the card. I wouldn't say I'm impressed because of the position he found himself in right off the bat, but I was impressed with how patient he stayed while he was in that choke, and just inch by inch got himself in better position to get out of it. When the ref got close to the ground and started looking real closely, that's when I was like, my heart sank. I thought, oh shit, this guy's about to get submitted in the first 30 seconds. But eventually got out of it, and from there, his skills on the ground are wildly impressive in my opinion for a 22-year-old. I mean, the dude's going to keep getting better and better. But yeah, that triangle armbar right when he started cranking on the arm. I mean, Jesus Aguilar screaming at the tap. So yeah, cashed it first play of the night, first cash of the night. I thought that was going to lead us to the promised land. I should have taken him my first round sub. That would have been fun, but sometimes he takes a while to get going. So but yeah, either way, it was good to cash that first play of the night.
Yeah, I'd love to start with a dub. But that is it for UFC Vegas 68. We got UFC 284 this weekend, and starting, well, this is the second week in a row of the 8 straight weeks of fights. Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski for the pound-for-pound #1 ranking and the lightweight championship. So very excited for that one. You got anything in mind for that one? This is Sunday night. So we're 6 or 7 days, 6 days away from the fights. What is the fight you're most looking forward to other than the main event? Because I will say, other than the main event and the co-main event, this card is pretty cheeks. Like, for a pay-per-view event, a lot of the fights got fallen off, and a little disappointing. Maybe that's why they're not promoting it like Islam Makhachev would want to. But other than the main event and the co-main, what's the fight you're looking forward to?
I don't know. There's Blake Builder, who's coming off of Dana White's Contender Series. I like watching those guys, making their UFC debut. I really do. It's fun watching them on the Contender Series and then hoping to find that next star like Sean O'Malley. I've been hearing people think that I don't know what the line is for Parker Porter, but a lot of people think he's going to go in there and get the upset. I believe he's an underdog, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it's about even.
Is it about even?
Pretty close, yeah. It might be slight dog money either way.
Yeah. When the UFC announced Paulo Costa and Robert Whittaker, I was super pumped for that one. Yeah. But apparently it never even was signed or official or anything. And then of course Kai Kara France. I always like watching Kai, but yeah, when those two dropped off, man, you go down this list and there's just not a fight that jumps off the card at you. So yeah, I'm just gonna say I'm excited for some of those UFC debuters. Who's the first fight of the night? There's a guy that has like 12 wins and 11 submissions from Brazil.
Elvis Brenner.
Yeah.
Tahugov.
I love looking at the records and seeing guys like that who are 11 knockouts out of his 12 wins or 11 submissions out of his 12 wins, and he's going to be a huge underdog in this fight. So yeah, any guy with a high finish rate like that, I'm excited to watch compete in the UFC, and hope he gets an upset and just see what he's got. But yeah, I like those type of guys. A lot of people don't. A lot of people write him off on the prelims, but I enjoy those.
Yeah, a couple of newcomers in this one. At least some guys that never even came off the Contender Series. Elvis Brenner, Francisco Prado, and a couple Contender Series guys. Blake Builder, not Shane Young. Jack Jenkins, Shannon Ross. That was the guy I was looking for. So kind of a weak card, like I said, but we're the diehards, and we're always going to watch, and we're always going to dive into it for you. So that'll be it for this video. All the Double Leg Premium stuff will be in the description for you to check out. We're going to be getting to you guys for the UFC 284 breakdown video very soon here. And at the Double Leg on all the social medias, at HI Picks on medias for me. Where can they find you?
TikTok, The Parlay, Twitter, The Parlay MMA, YouTube, The Parlay MMA, and on Instagram, you can find me at The Parlay _media.
All righty. Till then, the Double Leg.